So we started testing those out with all sorts of other things like weed and alcohol. He's like, it enhances everything. Here, try one. Yeah. It's fun stuff. I forget what it was called.
I'll have to figure out what kind of drug that is so I can actually tell our listeners to check it out so it'll enhance this show. By the way, we're live.
Oh, shit. Hey. Yes, enhancing drugs. Welcome to the Lesser Saints Discord, your one and only pre-show to the YouTube Saints. We're on every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Probably. If we're late, then you're wrong. And this week, I don't have to say fuck you, Fat Pat. Fat Pat now follows me on Twitter.
And we're going to tell the story of the brief series of images. Image 1! A beautiful shot by our friend Jables here. You can all see it.
Yes. My bartenders love me.
Yeah, as you can see, also, Fat Pat did definitely get a boner. Who wouldn't? I'm at half mast already.
Yes.
That's only because my screen's kind of small. It needs to be big screen for a big dick. Anyway, then Tables in typical top form. Whoop-pa!
Yes, good. Now use that boner to follow me, so I don't have to say fuck you every Sunday.
And the conclusion to this epic saga and tale is that, oh, wait, hold on. I fucked up everything there. God, I am so good at this. There we go. Fat Pat now follows Tables.
Yes. So now I got both iconic duos following me on Twitter. It's beautiful.
See, you have a Twitter, you've got followers, you get all these people. I sometimes forget I have a Twitter, and yet, time to check. As we do.
Oh,
am
yeah,
I
the
still
Steve Shives
blocked by Steve
update.
Shives? Am I still unblocked by Steve Shives? That is like the only thing that my Twitter does. I've got 38 people following me, 30 of which I think are people in the Discord. Oh hey, I'll follow Ryson and Double King. Twitter just suggested them to me. Sorry I wasn't following you guys before then. So let's look at my following and just scroll down. You can't see this, but trust me, it's there. Much like my very patriotic thong. Hey, all Americans wear the stars and stripes. You can't see.
Fuck yeah. But it's I'm currently wearing a nice Nintendo 64 t-shirt and jeans.
I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a patriotic thong. I'm not wearing a patriotic thong. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, though.
Why not?
Because...
I thought we were wearing the thongs tonight, dude.
Well, maybe I'm wearing a thong that's just not patriotic. Maybe it's French. I'm scrolling through here, and I'm looking for it. Oh,
wait, so just a white thong?
Steve Shives! I am not blocked by Steve Shives. Which is really funny, because awesome. Steve Shives, in my list of follows, is right between Nick and Razorfist. That's just hilarious.
If you're following Nick and Razorfist, you should be blocked by Steve Shives.
Oh, hey, dude, I'm following some black guy. I'm following... Oh, God, who else am I following? Layman. I'm following... Actually, that one might not have tripped it. But I am following a Twitter called Paleo Trump, and I fucking love it. So, as some of you know, I do paleontology stuff. And so, it's somebody just talking about, like, paleoclimatology in Trump style. Like, so you see it with, like, my approval rating is rising faster than the carbon dioxide concentrations. The numbers don't lie.
See, I thought, I think I figured out why I got blocked by Steve Shives. And that has to do with, it was back when Sargon was still on Twitter, and I think I followed Sargon first, and that's how I got blocked by Steve Shives.
You followed Sargon first?
Yeah.
I mean, that'll do it. But, yeah, you know what? We've been sitting at this desk for entirely too long. With that, we're going to transition. I'm sorry. I got out of work on time today. I'm happy. I'm having a good night.
Yeah. I can tell. Yeah.
Besides...
What, you want to talk about Kilroy for a little bit?
Let's talk about Kilroy for a little bit. And by the way, you know what talking about Kilroy sounds like, folks? It sounds like me just sitting there and letting Jables talk about Kilroy, because I have not been keeping up with it.
Yeah, mostly I'm going to talk about the people bitching about Kilroy. Cognitive Thought put out a video today about Jeff talking about his 360 camera. while streaming with his 360 camera.
I can't remember if I like Cognitive Thought or not. I know I've seen videos by him, but it's been so long I honestly can't remember.
It's the first actual video he's put out in a long time, I think.
Oh, well, you know,
he took the time to edit. He took the time to edit every time Jeff talked about the 360 camera. He's showing a fun toy to his friends and people at a convention. Fuck you, Cognitive Thought. Okay, it's not that serious.
Is he the one with the gears inside of his head that like are clearly grinding and smoking? Yeah, I kind of wish that it was a different head-related appendage and stuff, and just, you know, talking about, you know, another one of his harmful opinions. But I miss Harmful Opinions because he cracked me up so fucking much.
Yeah, I was a little too late to the internet game to really get into Harmful Opinions.
He cracked me up so much.
Yeah, I spent like 3 or 4 years without any real internet access.
It's kind of funny. I started watching Harmful Opinion stuff right around the same time I picked up on Doomed stuff. So I had two people with really nice deep voices, like right at the same time, and it was just like, oh baby. Made things a little strange with my girlfriend at the time, but you know what? That's okay because it wasn't the only reason. She just can't help that her voice is the sexiest on Doomed, but then again, I don't think anyone can help that except for maybe James Earl.
Nonsensical Mecha. How is Waffle not blocked? We don't know. That's why we check in every week.
Yeah, we check every time. Like, at this point, I'm tempted to start. Like, I know I haven't followed Sargon because I know that that's one of the things that can do it. I want to see how close I can get to the line without crossing it.
You can't follow Sargon. Sargon's not on Twitter anymore.
Oh, right. That would be a hell of a trick.
Follow him on Facebook.
Yeah, that'll get me blocked by Steve Shives on Twitter. Let me just open up my Tor browser and see if Shives is watching me even there.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Maybe one day, yes, Nonsensical Mecha, maybe he will be blocked one day, but we need to...
Yeah, if I need to perform a miracle to achieve sainthood, the miracle in question is definitely that I've not been blocked by Steve Shives.
Yes.
That I've had and gotten Lyme disease 3 times. I mean, that counts, I guess, but...
Yes, let's celebrate. Shots.
Yep, hold on.
What?
Sorry,
hold on,
I had to do gulps. It was important.
Alright.
Oh, shit. God damn it, I gotta clean off my beard!
Alright. So should we get into the news?
Hey, let's get into the news. What's the first article you want to go with? Let me give you 3 choices. Let me give you 3 choices. All right. Here's what I have labeled: Wyatt, X Guns Heroin, and Florida Man.
What about Poop Train?
Poop Train comes after these.
Okay.
It's too good. It's too funny.
Let's do White.
White?
White.
Yeah.
Because I think I know which one that is.
Yeah, white woman charged after arguing with black service members over parking spot. Okay.
Yeah.
What do we have here? All right. First of all,
I don't know. I haven't read the article.
This sounds like the kind of person. It just looks like the kind of person who would argue with someone over a parking spot. A 71-year-old. This was in Georgia. A 71-year-old white woman has been charged with battery after she and her son argued with 2 black female service members over a parking spot outside a restaurant. A Bibb County Sheriff's report says that Judy James Tucker. Oh, hey, if only they said that she was a judge, then I'd almost believe that. Told deputies it all started because she's white and it was a race issue. The report says 34-year-old Stephanie Mitchell told deputies that Tucker's adult son Robbie used obscene sexist language as he told her and her 27-year-old Treasure Sharp. Treasure Sharp, that's a great name. To learn how to park on Saturday. Then, report says the Tuckers followed the uninformed woman inside, where Robbie Tucker called them black lesbian. What could that be mean? Bats? brigands, barmaids,
bastard.
It's for those like look is blocked out here. Like they're like, oh, black lesbian.
It starts with a B. Use your imagination.
Black lesbian bantamweights.
I want to see that in the chat. Use what is the B word? What is the B word?
Black lesbian bellends.
Let us know in the chat.
Distribution. The O's at the bottom. I don't know. I'm
Black lesbian Beatles.
Bitches. I'm guessing it says bitches.
Oh, ruin the bit.
I don't know. It's my
Bandingo.
Guess. Bandingo. Is that like?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Is that like someone that you purchase to compete in band competitions, as opposed to just fighting?
Boonga Woonga. Banditos.
Banditos. I like that. Bench warmers. There we go. That's insulting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so others inside the Cheddar Scratch Kitchen restaurant. Cheddar Scratch Kitchen! Jesus fucking Christ, this just keeps getting better. Others inside the Cheddar Scratch Kitchen began recording. Video shows Judy Tucker striking Sharp in the face while trying to stop her from recording as well. At one point, Sharp says, "I'm pregnant," and Robbie Tucker says, "Oh really? By her?" To be fair, To be fair, this guy might just be a dumbass and just like, he goes, it's just like, "I'm pregnant." He's like, "Wait, what, by her? Holy shit, how the fuck?" And then he gets his ass kicked. So maybe he's the real victim here. Maybe he just was dumbstruck by, like, I don't know, no. This sounds like a whole bunch of it sounds like a bunch of people didn't handle things very well. It sounds like this dumbass fucking kid. Let's see, how old did it say it was? Her son. No, it doesn't even say how old her son is. That's fucking annoying. It's like, oh yeah, 70, well, I mean, I assume he's of age, because, yeah. Either way, it sounds like this guy was a dick and she was overprotective, and then everything was handled wrong. But, I don't even know. I'd have to look more into it.
That's generally what happens every time you hear a mother and son get into an altercation.
Yeah. Report says deputies reviewed cell phone video and determined that Judy Tucker was the primary aggressor, and there's no evidence suggesting the other women did anything wrong. I'm just, for some reason, I'm having flashbacks to the Eric Andre show all of a sudden. Just...
I've actually never seen the Eric Andre show. I just seen memes.
Dude, it's hilarious.
By it.
Just go look up Rapper Warrior Ninja at some point, and whenever you're playing video games and failing, you're just going to start saying, like, "This beat is trash. I'm about to bust my ass." Just trust me. That's what's going to start. That's going to get into your head, and it's not going to leave.
All right. Sounds fair.
Speaking of which, Max, if you're Leslie Maxwell, if you're listening, I want to see you start doing that when we play League. That's going to make me laugh. Just so fucking hard. All right. So they did all this stuff. Blah blah blah. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna hit play on the video and just watch it.
Getting in our way when we were trying hard.
That's okay.
Don't you take a picture of me? You do not have the right to take a picture of me. I do. Do not take a picture of me. Hey. It's wrong. I'm pregnant. Have them hands off him. Ma'am. Put that phone down. Oh, shit. Ma'am.
Don't do it. I'm pregnant. Look at me. I'm pregnant. You pushing the pregnant lady.
Well, my husband is handicapped.
I'm watching it, but
apparently the husband is.
I have to watch it on my phone.
Yeah, apparently the husband is handicapped. Apparently, oh my god, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on here. It's getting crazy. But
wait, that husband or son or both?
That is an excellent question. Reminds me of a joke I heard recently. If a couple in Alabama gets divorced, are they still brother and sister?
Yeah.
Okay. That settles that question.
Yeah, that status doesn't change. It's just the marital status that changes. Don't you know?
Are they still talking? Does the relationship status change, or is it still just it's complicated on Facebook?
I think it just changes to it's complicated. I think it's complicated beforehand.
You know what? There's a joke like gestating in my head here. It's something along the lines of like, what happens when two rednecks start dating, and it's something along the lines of the entire family changes relationship status to it's complicated.
Don't you hate that when you know there's a fucking joke there?
Yeah, I know there's a joke there. I just don't know what it is yet. I'll figure it out, and it's gonna be horrible. And I'm sorry to anyone here, especially you, Salty Gus. I'm not trying to insult anybody except for comedic purposes. I don't know if you're the type that would self-identify as a redneck, but I feel like you might.
Myself, however, I am totally open to insulting anybody, whether or not it's comedic.
Oh, I don't want to make people feel bad. I just kind of end up doing it anyway.
I sometimes do. It depends on the situation.
I'm gonna watch the rest of this video. It's 20 seconds.
I thought you already watched it.
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
You can't see it. Hey, you only record.
Because you've been drinking and...
No, I think it's like, yes, fight each other. Bring more chaos to this world. We need it. I don't know. My brain's a strange place. Alright. Well, that's enough of white. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Point is, people being crazy, fighting over a parking space. Someone tries to take a picture and then it's physical.
Yeah, somehow it made it to CBS.
Yep. Apparently that was important. So, Florida man or X-Guns heroin?
Ooh, let's do Florida man.
Florida man! Alright, let me actually move over to that window properly. Wait, which one is it? Where are you hiding? There you are. Okay, so Florida man adjusts radio, crashes off a 50-foot tall bridge in a Chevy Camaro. How dare you do that to a Camaro? Sorry, I actually kind of like Camaros.
Yeah, scroll down so people can see
that is a smash
damage that was done.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's criminal. Let's see what happened. The promised autonomous driving revolution can't come soon enough for some people, like the subject of today's entry in the Florida Man Chronicles. Why you gotta make this about self-driving cars? A distracted driver who lost control of his 2016 Chevy Camaro convertible while adjusting the radio launched off the side of a highway bridge and plunged 50 feet to the street below. Please tell me he did not put on cruise control thinking that this was an automatic driving thing, because that's happened before, except it was a Winnebago.
It is Florida.
Yeah, it is Florida. But you had a thing you were going to say there. I got you off. Just do your thing.
Oh, no, I was going to read the article. But,
oh, maybe you can read the next part.
Yeah.
We can take
I do have to let everybody know that the reason why you see so many Florida Man articles is that there's actually a law in Florida where police departments have to release information to journalists. That's why you see all the crazy Florida Man articles. That's it.
Wait, what do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't think I follow. Like, how does that make
the police departments in Florida are legally required, if requested for information, they have to release information to journalists about like crimes committed. That's why you see so many Florida Man articles. It's because journalists just hunt down Florida police departments.
So you call Florida Police Department and say, "Tell me the whole story," and then they do.
Yeah, they have to legally.
Got it.
Pretty much.
But I guess they can't give out names or something, so it's always Florida Man.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I love it. Florida.
They'll give out names if they can, but sometimes they can't, so it's always Florida Man.
Florida,
That fucker needs to be stopped.
This is a good law, Florida. I like this law. You should keep it.
Yeah.
It makes my life more entertaining. All right.
I think every state should have that law, but right now it's fun just to make fun of Florida.
If it were my state, like
it's the dick of the U.S. and it acts like it. That's damn
no.
sure.
If it were my state, you'd see like just constant, like every week at a minimum, you'd see an article of like yet another Albuquerque man knifed for green chili, or knifed over green chili cheeseburger. Because I remember the Saints covering someone getting knifed over a green chili cheeseburger in Albuquerque. Yeah, that's not a rare occurrence. That just happens.
Yeah, and here in Washington State, the Juggalos. So you'd hear a lot of stories about Juggalos every summer.
What?
But they migrate back down to California every winter. That's not even a joke. That's what legitimate. That's what legitimately happens. They migrate between Washington State. They mostly go to Spokane.
Somebody please.
And
somebody please put together a Photoshop picture of, like, Juggalo, like, you know those birds with arms picture? I want to see somebody get some flying birds and just put Juggalo faces on them. Please do that for me.
When I used to work at Walmart, and I was working with somebody that was from San Diego, and he was like, I was talking about the Juggalos. And this was back when I lived in Spokane. And he's like, Juggalos don't exist. And I was like, Are you serious? They totally exist. And I asked him when his next day off was. I said, pick me up. We're going to go to downtown. I'll show you Juggalos. And we started walked down to the bus plaza where they hang out. And all I did was I went into the bus plaza and I did my whoop whoop. And they came a running. And then we got whatever drugs we wanted. Oh, that's a pro tip, by the way. If you're in Spokane and you want drugs, go to the bus plaza, do your little whoop whoop,
find the Juggalos.
And no, the Juggalos will come to you, and they will get you whatever you need. It might take half an hour to an hour for them to really find it, but
so you go to the plaza and let out a fucking Juggalo mating call, and then get a bunch of drugs.
Yeah. No, it might take like half an hour to an hour for them to run through the whole system of the entire fam to figure out who has what. But eventually, you're gonna have what you need. And there's vending machines. Grab a soda, sit down, relax, play on your phone. Fuck it.
I'm gonna need a little bit of time to recover from that revelation.
No, that. Okay, I know I joke around a lot, but that is dead. That's dead ass serious.
I know. It makes it so much better. Like, if it were a joke, it'd be like, oh, you're just being ridiculous. But now, like, I could actually do this.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Just
Weed, mushrooms, acid, meth, heroin, whatever you need. The film will find it.
I think the key here is just to remember, everybody, the takeaway is that the true gateway drug is a Juggalo mating call. Holy fucking shit. Fucking magnets, man. How do they work?
No,
Oh,
I have been immersed in. I have a lot of friends that are either juggalos or ex-juggalos, or juggalettes, and oh, if you want sex too, you can do that also, not just drugs.
But they kind of look like clowns, so that might be a bad idea.
Not all of them are in full face paint all the time.
Yeah, but it's like they wear the clown on the inside on their souls, and that's just scary.
And yes, Bar, you can be an ex-juggalo. You can ask my friend Jeff. Not Jeff Holiday, but another Jeff. Actually, we should have him on for a show to talk about the juggalo culture.
I like how this article is just like, oh, hey, you know, a guy crashed a car because he was fucking retarded, and all of a sudden, juggalos got what you need!
Sorry, just let into that.
Like, if you're buying the juggalos are selling...
we should have juggalo culture as a subject some week.
Fuck, dude. I'm down. That's gonna kill me. That is an episode where I'm gonna die, but okay.
Why YGK&W? It's JUGGALO. Not two L. It's two G's, not two L's.
Sorry, I kept reading that article and I found something beautiful here. It's somewhat related. According to Tampa Bay Times, the unofficial Dukes of Hazzard impression began when 61-year-old Thomas Highhouse took his eyes off the road to mess with the stereo in his Marrow while driving down Interstate 275 in St. Petersburg. Highhouse, quote, failed to maintain control of the vehicle, end quote, as the Florida Highway Patrol clinically put it, hit an embankment in the median and soared into the air like a majestic bird. You know,
yeah.
Like a migratory bird. Like a juggalo. Oh, man, I'm going to get some mileage out of this one.
Hold on. I have a bone to pick with. What, okay? YGK&W.
I'm sorry, a lot of things happening in the chat. I can't see that. 40.
Yeah, so... Juggalettes, yes, they are sluts. They are whores. However, there are a lot of good-looking juggalettes that are just gaping in every sense of the word.
I need to... Yeah, so... As a complete side note, though it might be somewhat related... Oh, God. No, see, the problem, Sire, is that they needed to call it not like horrifying carcass flying like a majestic bird. They needed to describe it as flying like a majestic fucking eagle. That would have been perfect. But yeah, just as a side note, I have a song stuck in my head, and at first I thought I didn't hate this. And I didn't, because it was making my life a lot more entertaining. But now I kind of do, because I'm running out of, like, places to kind of have it work correctly. It's the Space Jam theme song. The Space Jam theme song is stuck in my head, so I'm like walking around doing random shit and just in my head, come on and slam!
And coming to the jam!
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious, but it might be killing me a little bit on the inside, because I'm running out of things to slam.
FYI, later on I may or may not be streaming Space Jam in a rabbit.
Oh, God.
That's possible. I know I still have in my watch later playlist on YouTube. I have Your Movie Sucks commentary on Space Jam.
Oh no, Space Jam's a beautiful thing. Anyway.
And I own Space Jam on DVD.
So
because I'm a baller.
So this guy was. This is ridiculous. So he survived, and he is apparently uninjured from the fall. He ran through the median and fell, or like the thing. He ran off the highway and fell 50 feet in a Camaro, going really fast, and somehow he.
So the Camaro is a safe car.
Sure. Reminds me of the first time I had a car accident, except I have an excuse because I have a condition.
Yeah, the last car accident I was involved in, somebody died.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That really sucks.
I'm kidding. Nobody died.
Was it your fault?
No.
Jables, where did you hide the body?
I did not hide anybody. I did not. I did not hide the body. I did not. Oh, hey, well.
We should see if we could get Tommy Wiseau on fucking either Saints, this one or the other one. I'd be down.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to actually go and have a beer with Tommy Wiseau.
Well,
Fat
Pat and Sophane are down to come on this. I'm just trying to figure out a topic that would be fun to talk about.
Dude, like, just pick one and we're not going to talk about it. It'll go some different direction. It's fine.
The problem that I run into is that I just want to sit down and chat with Sophane.
That's what will happen. So pick it being the conversation that Jables will have with Sophane, and it ends up being just a meta thing, and then I mute you both, and then Fat chat.
It's just gonna be about drugs.
I am the producer. I am all powerful.
Yeah. The problem that I run into is that we're on a time limit. So I would rather get our secondary show set up, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, audience,
someday,
and have that for a longer period of time.
That would be fun.
But yeah, I like to do. I would like to do a more free-form sort of thing. If I bring Fat Pat or Sophane in.
So I just want to note. Yeah, we have this very disillusioned-looking police officer. We're going to close up this article in a second. We have a disillusioned-looking police officer who's just like, what the fuck? How dare you do that to the Camaro? And then we have this ad at the bottom here that says, distracted driving is a symptom of our dangerous addiction to garbage. So if you find yourself addicted to garbage, looking at you, Squiggums, yeah, maybe you're going to die in a car accident. Just so you know.
All right.
Service announcement, stop eating garbage.
So... I don't know what you had planned for our main topic tonight.
I have stuff planned, but now, do you want to do X guns?
I don't want the news articles to run into that. That's the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not even going to talk too much about this. I'm just going to pull it up.
3 arrested in Sumter for ecstasy guns and $60,000 in heroin.
We can roll that over to the next one, but we've got Poop Train. We're doing Poop Train. Poop Train.
Poop Train.
Literal fucking Poop Train carrying human waste.
Yeah, apparently they are filling trains of New Yorkers' shit and shipping it down to the South because they are almost literally shitting on the South.
Gee, isn't that just a repeat of history? Poop Train carrying human waste cleared after months squatting in Alabama town. Parish population 982. 982 people in this little town. It's a village. It's not a town. Became the butt of jokes after complaining
Hey, no. Stop.
That's a village.
No, I grew up in a nice little town of about 300 people.
I grew up in a nice little village of like 2,000. Towns are bigger than villages.
2,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being a child in that sort of town. How did you know everybody?
Oh, I didn't. I lived like 30 miles away from that. Like, take the middle of nowhere, and I lived even more in the middle of nowhere than that. Yeah. I lived closer to the next state than where I went to school. That's saying a lot because I live in a big state.
One of these days, I'm going to show you guys the house I grew up in, and how right off to the west, such a beautiful wheat field, and then it
all burned down. They put a church
we'll do some
Christianity.
Whoa, no.
Oh no, dude! I'm just trying to create a supervillain backstory for you.
And it does have 4 different churches. There's a Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Catholic church.
Do they make like a star if you line them up on a map?
No, they just make a square.
But that square could be a star if you do it differently. It could be a 4-pointed star.
It could be a retarded star, sure.
So what I'm trying to say there is that maybe it's a retarded conspiracy that made a retarded star.
Yeah, no, but the track team uses it's called the Church Loop in that town. The track team uses those as a running point. They do a lap around the churches. That's not even a joke. That's a real thing too.
I appreciate.
I grew up in a ridiculous fucking place. Juggalos and church loops and all sorts of shit.
Oh man, don't even get me started. Oh boy, I will leave some of those stories for another day. I grew up in a very strange place. Let's just put it that way. Oh god.
Your place is probably a lot stranger than mine. We've had some talks.
I have sat across from a man who was telling me that my generation would save the world because we're indigo children that have crystal DNA that has 12 strands. I had to nod and smile because he was one of my best friend's dads. Oh, God. Holy shit, man.
Never mind, that's not that weird.
No, that is just barely scratching the surface, man. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I heard that too. Waffle. You aren't alone.
Do you know what
I'm giving you a long distance. I'm giving you a long distance loving embrace.
Do you know what the Rainbow Gathering is?
I do. I've been to the Rainbow Gathering.
They came through like a migratory swarm of juggalos every year.
Don't talk about the Juggalos if you don't know about the Juggalos, my friend.
You said they were migratory birds? Oh, wait, no, I said they were migratory birds, but you agreed!
Yes.
Anyway, enough about the strangeness that happens in places that should not be spoken of right now.
Yes, they are migratory. The Juggalos, they do migrate down to Southern California. And then they migrate back up to mostly Spokane. Some of them trickle over to Seattle, depending on who they get their rides from.
Juggalos and migratory birds.
We could,
Are they an endangered species?
should we do that as a topic?
Juggalo migration habits.
I can talk about juggalos all fucking day. I was going to make a full-blown documentary about juggalos. And there's a documentary on Netflix about juggalos, and they don't fucking know shit about the fam culture.
Anyway, poop train. I like that they say became a lot of jokes. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit, but you gotta grab it.
Yeah, it's like a dingleberry. It hangs for a load, and it's not a fruit at all.
Yeah, Alabama's poop train is no longer raising a stink, literally and figuratively. Mayor of the tiny town of Parrish posted on Wednesday on Facebook that train cars carrying human waste from New York City were finally emptied and cleared and should be removed soon. The cars were sitting idle for more than 2 months. Oh, God. Yep. They were sitting idle for more than 2 months after a neighboring county went to court to block the train's passage. Oh my God! Small town politics. This is
another example of some big coastal city shitting on a little guy.
Yep.
Sorry, I can't help but laugh at my own joke on that one.
No, that's amazing. They were unloaded at Big Sky Environmental, a private landfill about 20 miles away. Awesome. Yeah, so apparently if you live in Alabama, you can... Wait, was it Alabama? Yeah, if you live in an Alabama tiny-ass town, you could very easily get a bunch of just random-ass shit trains showing up, preferably with a shirtless man with a mask yelling, "I'm the conductor of the poop train!" You know, among other things. You know. I enjoyed Borderlands 2 quite a bit. It's a good game, Jables. You should play it.
What, Borderlands?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played it.
Did you
played both and the prequel? Yeah. Sorry, say that again?
Did you powder your cockatiel for the ribcage slaughter?
Yep.
Good. Then we're on the same page. What with having the shiniest meat bicycle and all that.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's just when you have an article that says poop train, you know, what am I supposed to do?
Supposed to talk shit.
Yeah, talk shit. And then Borderlands jokes. Anyway, so a poop train happened. Long story short, let's empathize with this poor town in Alabama who had a shit train sitting in their town for 2 months. Dear God. That must have been terrible. My heart goes out to this.
Must have been a shit show.
This is a shit show. Alright.
I'm just having fun at this point. Fuck it.
Wait, that goes away, and that goes away. Alright. So that's the articles. I mean, we can do the heroin one later. That sounds like fun.
Well, I like talking about drugs. TSA, there's a new Spurg in town. That was telling me that my drug use.
Before you say anything about that, I just want to be very clear. I have not met this person. I don't know what's going on. I am not a party to this. I would not call somebody a Spurg live on air. That's just not the way I do. That being said, when it comes to moderation and stuff, Jables is actually more lenient than I am. So.
I absolutely am. Well, you know, let's let the chat go. Most of the people in the chat were there last night when I had to give a lecture. And alright. So there was somebody in the Discord last night that was trying to quote unquote educate two people that are gun nuts, good friends of the show, Rimshi and H. Greg, and educate them on California law about guns. And if you know our show at all, you know that we've done several shows with Rimshi about guns.
I think we brought H. Greg on.
Actually, no. I talked to H. Greg earlier today. We've never actually brought H. Greg on.
Oh yeah, no, we thought about bringing him on, and I got it all set up. I have your icon and everything set up so that you could be a guest. But I guess
we brought Brett on instead because it would be funnier to trigger him.
Yeah, and it still is.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, enjoying those goal points? Those goal points that they're scoring, dunking the touchdowns.
So, but this person not only got into an argument with two gun nuts that live in California about California and U.S. law, he's also Canadian, so he doesn't fucking know the laws. On top of that,
we'll talk about in a bit, but please continue. Just put a pin in that. I'll get to it. Go ahead.
On top of that, he tried to talk to me about drugs and how I was using drugs too often. You guys know me. I'm on here all the time. You guys are aware of when I'm using drugs and when I'm not using drugs. Mostly, I'm just drinking. And when I asked for evidence of this guy's claims, all he sent me was how certain drugs absorb into your system. And that was it. I'm getting off point. Fuck it.
So, here's what I'm gonna come back. Let me just lay out a couple of things from what I've heard from a couple of people and from Jables. First off, most of our rules in this Discord are pretty much directly based on Discord terms of service. There's a few that aren't. Most of the the rules that are not based on Discord's terms of service are ones that are a little more of a style thing. They're generally more guidelines. Basically, don't at everyone ping constantly for no fucking reason. And if you screw up on it, you're probably not going to get punished. You're going to get a little... One of us telling you, probably me, because I'm the one who, kind of takes that upon himself to do, going in and saying, hey, probably not the right, ping to use for this situation. Use at here, or just ping the specific people you're trying to talk to, or something like that. Usually going to be a gentle reminder. If I see it keep continuing, I will give you a warning, and if I have had to warn you multiple times, I will do something, either like a 24-hour mute or something like that, right? But you have a lot of chances to screw up on anything that's not based on Discord terms of service. If it is based on Discord terms of service, we kind of have to do something about it. We don't want this server deleted. You post child porn, it's getting deleted, and you're getting banned. Alright? If you post borderline, it's getting deleted, and we're warning you, and do not make it a repeat occurrence. We'll be nice. Right? We'll be forgiving, we'll be good about that, but do not post it. If you're posting not safe for work stuff, or, and this is a big one that I see a lot of people screwing up with, not safe for work stuff or borderline not safe for work stuff in safe for work channels, anything other than the not safe for work channel, then you're gonna hear from mods. All right? Keep it to not safe for work. If there's no nipple showing, that doesn't necessarily mean that it can be out of that channel. All right? Use your best judgment. Err on the side of caution. Sound good?
I deleted a lot of stuff that I thought was fucking hilarious, but needed to go into the not safe for work
because the
section.
thing is, we think it's hilarious and we think it's fun, but if someone else comes in, like let's say someone who's a little more interested in reporting shit and sees it and doesn't think it's funny, we could be in deep shit. All right? Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much the lecture I gave to what's his face. So.
All right, so that's nice and condensed. Very important thing for me to note on this when it comes to interpretations on the rules and all that. My interpretations of the rules are generally pretty accurate, considering that I wrote them. So
yes, and I'm a lot. Waffle's bad cop. I'm good cop. So.
Okay. So yeah, like, and on that note, Jables was there to review the rules before I ever posted them. So if one of the mods comes to you and tells you you're breaking the rules, and they're giving you a warning, and you backtalk, it's going to get worse.
Yes. We've already had a discussion with them about backtalking the mods.
No, I'm telling this to everybody. I'm telling this to everybody. Okay. If one of the mods comes in, and granted, I'm kind of bad about this. I'm trying to not do it. I will threaten to mute people when I shouldn't. But and I almost never mean it. If I mean it, I'll say, okay, talking as a moderator, this is what's going to happen. I'll be very clear that I'm speaking as a mod. But most important bit about this, all right? You can defend yourself. If you break the rules and you think that you don't deserve to be punished or whatever, you can absolutely defend yourself. You can say, here's why I don't think what I did crossed the lines. But if you basically get one shot at that. If we tell you, okay, objection noted, you still cross the line, you're still getting punished. If you try to fight that too hard, it's going to go from a mute to a ban or something like that. Do not do that. All right?
Shit.
All right. I think.
Shit. Oh no! Hold up, Waffle.
Did you let yourself on fire?
Yeah. One thing that I have to say about it is that I am extremely lenient on the rules. But oh, fuck. Nope. I lost my point.
Just because Jabel says it's okay doesn't mean I say it's okay. Just because Anna says it's okay doesn't mean I say it's okay. Yes, that is beautiful. Yeah. Goldie, I love that. Goldie send me that Photoshop I asked for.
Well, Waffle is like a 10, and Anna is like a 0. I'm about right in the middle between what's acceptable. Right. But one thing that's it. Back talk. I understand the difference between comedic backtalk and backtalking my quote-unquote authority. I don't want people to be nervous about, like, throwing me shit. So, can you understand that, Waffle? Like,
the way here's my feeling on it. Wait, which one? The Sire thing or what you're saying? Kasai just asked, what if you're a loose cop on the edge, playing fast and loose with the law to bring about his own form of justice burst from the barrel of coal? Which, that's interesting.
I just have to ask people, who have I banned?
No, as for like that idea of backtalk and everything, look, you can give me shit all you want. And I think pretty much everyone in the server can attest to the fact that I don't think I've taken any mod action towards somebody who hadn't broken a rule. All right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to take mod action against you, it's probably going to be very clear why. Right?
The only people I've banned are either raiders or I banned Matthew Striegel.
No,
I banned Matthew Striegel at one point, but that was just out of anger, and then I revoked that ban.
Worth noting, even though I'm the bad cop, I don't do that. But it's, I guess what I want to point out with that is, I will absolutely be the bad cop about enforcing a lot of the rules we have, but I don't want to punish people. I don't want to ban anybody. My ideal, as far as monitoring the server goes, is that everybody plays by the rules, which are pretty fucking easy to follow. You know, don't post child porn. Don't post porn outside of not safe for work. It's really not that hard.
Don't post gore.
Yeah. So it's, do yourself a favor, read the rules, realize that they're really easy to follow, and then on top of that, know that none of the mods, or at least, I can't speak for everybody, but at least in my case, I don't want to kick anybody from the server. I don't want to mute anybody. I don't want to ban anybody. Because if I do that, I don't get the benefit of your opinion anymore. It's not good for me. Like, purely selfishly, it is useless to me to get rid of people. It's why I don't block people on Twitter. It's why I don't block people on Facebook. It's why I don't do any of that. I just don't block people. Because that way I figure it, input is useful to me, even if it's, fucking retarded. So, I don't want to do that. I mean, put me in a position where I have to. Okay? Good.
Yeah. The most mod thing I did within the last week was a bunch of people were watching a Rabbit, but they were hanging out in Voice Text 1, so I just moved them all to Rabbit Voice channel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that brings me up to another thing. Sorry to go on this whole moderating tangent, but it is important to know. I'm getting a little annoyed with people misusing channels and such. Until I can figure out a way to, put in a thing where you got to be in a channel for like at least a minute before you can talk or something like that, which I don't know if I'll ever actually implement it, even if I do figure that out.
Don't do that.
Like, until I figure that out, and again, don't make me have to do things. Be courteous when you hop into a voice channel. Don't just start talking at people. Wait for a good pause in the conversation. I mean, unless it's me, feel free to interrupt me. You know, I can hold my own. I'm fine. But
definitely feel free to interrupt Waffle. Because otherwise he's gonna go on for fucking ever.
Yeah, But yeah, be courteous, especially when you're hopping into a gaming channel. The games that are, from what I can tell, the games that are most often played on the server tend to be PUBG. PUBG is a game where sound's important, for example. So, if you're going to hop into a gaming channel and go say hi to everybody, you know, maybe make sure they're not in the middle of a firefight or something. Maybe toss something into the text chat. If you need to get someone's attention, do not jump into a voice channel and start yelling at them. Mention them. That's a thing that you all can do. All right, there are tools for your disposal. Rabbit channels for rabbit chats, gaming channels for gaming chats, random streamings for random streaming, voice chats for voice chats. Corresponding text channels fit with those things. If you're not using for its intended purpose, don't be there. All right. I haven't done anything to anyone for that. I've handed out a couple of warnings for people being, you know, consistently bitchy about that, but generally speaking, I haven't done anything.
I'm so fucking lax that I had to issue my first warning this weekend.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, regardless of that, because again, you're very lax. I don't see many people, you know, doing it, but there are a few people who are being frustrating about it. And the reason I'm saying this now is not a threat. It's, please, for the love of God, do not put me in a situation where I have to be heavy-handed. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go mad with power. My ideal moderating experience is where I put out some, you know, some rules that are not terribly restrictive, and people follow them, and then I have to do nothing. I want to be lazy about this. All right. So, considering time, I'm gonna go ahead. Jables, unless you have anything to close that out, I'm gonna hop into our supposed topic for the evening.
Don't fucking tempt me to put that fucking band hammer on.
Yeah.
That's
Good to see you, Jax, by the way.
Yeah, I said hey, Jax.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, Jax. It's good to see you. Oh, actually, that reminds me. Just so you guys know, there is no rule in that list that was written with any specific person in mind. It was, again, either modeled after Discord terms of service or modeled after specific things that we needed to deal with. But no rules that if you feel like you were being unfairly targeted, I promise you that you weren't. You know, and again,
I've already talked to people about that.
No, I'm just saying that as a general thing. We have some new people, so if you have problems with the rules, either talk to Jable so he can convince you that everything's more fine than it is, or talk to me if they need to be changed. You know, I'm open to having that be a living document, but you guys got to actually give me feedback for me to do anything with it.
I'm the guy that tells you everything's cool and hip, and he's the one that makes the rules.
Yeah. Kind of funny how that works. Also, I think Jeff has actually banned more people than I have, which is kind of funny. So, do you want to move over to the next thing?
What's the next thing? Do you want to do our main topic for tonight? Because we're running on about an hour.
Yeah, no, that's plenty of time.
This is fucking weird. We actually started on time.
I know. We're not pressed for time. So. Actually,
right.
You know, Jables, interact with the chat.
Oh, I love the chat.
It's fine. You can handle it. You'll be fine on your own.
The chat's my fan. You're my Gigolo fan. Whoop whoop. Yeah. All right. Trainer Jax, you're getting a wrench. So, how are you guys doing tonight? I'm actually pretty drunk, surprisingly. What are you guys up to tonight? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to hear us talk about? Because our main subject is going to be logic and reason, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna handle that. I might just be an asshole, and you might hear Waffle and I argue a lot.
Alright, headphones back on. I can hear, I can see.
Yeah.
Lights are back on.
Yeah. Can you have your headphones on again?
I can hear you, yes.
Shh. Don't talk shit about Waffle anymore, guys. Stop it.
No, you can talk shit about me. We'll have some good times. It's all good. No, seriously, I really don't mind if people talk shit about me. I don't care. It's just like, if you're gonna talk shit about me, as long as you're not just like fucking with people, like just kind of fucking around for fun's sake and everything, like if you legit have a problem with me, please tell me. Because like I kind of can't do anything about it if I don't know exists. So just
Mecha wants us to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh is a trainer kit for fucking Magic.
What I want to say about Yu-Gi-Oh is that I actually finally found out what the D stands for in Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds. It stands for Don't Watch It!
Yes.
I also found out what the X stands for in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Hold on. Here's my real stance on Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game. It is a good card game, and it is the cards are very nice and succinct, and they tell you exactly what they're doing. However, I think it is a very good training tool to get people into Magic the Gathering, which is a superior fucking game. Alright.
My general issue when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, because I do quite like Magic, even though I don't play much in the scene these days, it's just structure thing. Big thing with Magic is that Magic is really, really consistent about its core rules, and whenever a card modifies core rules, it's right on there how it works. It's really solid. So you can, if you know the basic rules to Magic, look at the board of like just look at all the cards in play and figure out how everything interacts, right? But with Yu-Gi-Oh, that can be a lot more difficult because the cards tend to alter fundamental bits about the game a little bit more, and they tend to update things, add new zones, do all kinds of crazy stuff. On top of that, the ban list is done in weird ways for weird sake. They keep making a new overpowered everything. It's like, oh look, Xyz is the best. Oh wait, no, never mind. Pendulum's the best. And I don't like the idea that they have to break. I don't like that they basically have to break the previous game each set. It's frustrating. It's a good game.
Yeah.
It's really fun. If you enjoy it, great. You're gonna have a really hard time getting me to actually seriously play the game, just because I feel like my time is better spent elsewhere, often with Magic, often with other games. That's my feeling on it.
Well, with Yu-Gi-Oh, I do still have my player mat where I have the...
Oh shit, dude, I have the playmat of shame.
Yeah.
No, my playmat of shame, I'll have to take a picture of it for you guys at some point. It's one I'm using as my mouse pad right now because it's the same kind of fabric. But this is what I bring to tournaments and stuff for Magic and everything. It's a playmat from the World of Warcraft trading card game.
No.
And the thing is, I never played the World of Warcraft trading card game, but buying the intro starter set of the World of Warcraft trading card game gave me a mat and a deck box and then a bunch of cards, which was cheaper than buying a mat, like an Ultra Pro mat, at the time.
No.
So I just got that and I have a playmat of shame. I actually have another playmat out. I like another couple playmats elsewhere, but I love bringing this one to watch just people cringe. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm cringing a little too hard right now.
Good. Fuck. I keep one of my most cancerous decks. Actually, wait, I should switch that over. Because I could keep my most cancerous deck in the World of Warcraft deck box. Just to hurt people. It's like, oh no, World of Warcraft is out. No one's having fun anymore.
Yeah, shit.
What did you just do? Did you just turn on sound on your phone?
Yeah.
No, dare you. Your phone has to be silent. Phones should be seen, not heard. Alright. So, for what we're talking about with this thing, the ostensible topic, the reason why it's called Think About It, you silly goose, for this show at least, is that we were going to talk a little bit about logic. And you might say, I don't know which you, I'm using like the general you might say, but Waffle, you've been drinking tonight. How can you talk about logic? And the answer is, Turns out logic's actually fairly simple, and I can still do it while I'm drunk. I guess the reason why this came up is I like with many things in the YouTube skeptic community, when I'll watch a video and someone will say something.
Oh, fucking no, go.
Yeah. What?
It is a community because we talk to each other. Fine. That's fair enough.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't emphasize community to make it sound like I was joking. The point is, the general collection of content creators that are skeptical about things and insist that they sit on a pillar of logic and rationality, blah 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 blah.
Well, I wouldn't even call them skeptical about things.
Some people are.
I wouldn't even go that far.
I don't care. It's not important. You have a general idea of who I'm talking about. My problem is on either side of like the social justice, not social justice, cultural Marxist, leftist, libertarian, right, whatever. On all these sides of this stuff, and this happens in political conversation, political debate, even with like people like Hillary and Trump and all that stuff. People really like to use words wrong. I see people use the word skeptic wrong all the damn time.
Yeah.
And I see this happen a lot with logic.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. Logic isn't necessarily a specific thing. It's actually a family of a bunch of things. But I'm getting real tired of this shit because people will be like, oh, well, you know, just think logically about it. Think about
No, that's not it. Whenever I hear somebody say think logically about it, it doesn't include like everybody's personal experience included in what their idea is.
Actually, real quick, Livy is absolutely right here. Logic, when I say fairly simple, I'll get to that in a second. But yes, logic is absolutely a discipline that requires training and practice. This is true. Mathematics is a practice that requires training and practice. And there are huge, crazy ramifications of that. Topology is some crazy bullshit. But ultimately, when you start working on something like logic or mathematics, in the case of mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2 is pretty easy to grasp. It's pretty easy to start working with addition. It's pretty easy to start breaking everything down to basics and working there. It takes for fucking ever to get anywhere meaningful when you're down working with basics and don't necessarily have all the notation and stuff that you need to know yet. But you can still do it. Right? Well, yeah, and I actually have a reason I don't want Livy on for this episode. We can bring her on for a follow-up, I'll explain. But, with logic is... There are some very simple rules to logic that you can follow. You can break things down to absolute basics. But, like I said, logic is a very large family of things. There are different kinds of reasoning. There's a lot of different places you can go with logic. You can get to really advanced stuff. But the basics are fairly simple. And because I have had a lot of training with it, I can still do it while drunk. But, yeah, it's... Also, Livy, the reason I don't want to bring you on right now is because you are very knowledgeable about philosophy and logic and reasoning, and because of that exactly, I don't want to get into with the interesting stuff, because if you're on, you're going to say something I find interesting, and we're going to just fucking go off on that tangent for hours. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so
we'll bring you on for another show.
I'm a dum-dum.
Deeper into it, but we want to lay out the basically what people are doing wrong here. At least to a degree, some of the basic stuff there. So first things first.
So.
Oh, go ahead.
So you're gonna hang out with me because I'm a dum-dum.
Yeah. So first
I'm totally aware of that. So that's not that's
everything terrible. Like
disparaging myself, but it's not a
breaking things. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm dead.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Jables is a zombie. That's fine. So I guess starting with what people do with logic. When something makes sense, that doesn't mean it makes logical sense. There's a difference, you know? Oh wait, am I really quiet? I can turn myself up. I can fix that for sure. Maybe. Do you want me to? Shit. Okay. Hold on. I can fix this. Let's see. Wait, what? How do I... Shit. Oh wait, I can't fix that.
Waffle, you can do whatever you want,
No,
baby.
it's okay. I'm just putting this up to 130, making myself that much louder because Jables is
Yeah.
close that. How's that sound? Am I loud enough?
Louder, baby.
I'm waiting for the chat to tell me. Rimshi, tell me, baby, come on. I'll just wait for that to let me know what's going on. But the
you want that ASMR?
So there's a lot of really basic mistakes people make with logic. So for example, let's lay out a really simple case here. Let's just say, for the moment, that all men wear green hats. Okay? That's a proposition. That is the thing. That is a premise. We can put that forward. All men wear green hats. Let's say for the moment that is absolutely true. That is an immutable characteristic of the world. If someone is a man, they have a green hat. That's it. End all be all. All right?
Sure.
Let's just pretend that's real. Okay? So, if I were to say, this person over here is wearing a green hat, therefore they're a man. That sounds like it might make sense. It doesn't. It's not true. It doesn't work that way. They may very well be a man, but then nowhere do we set forward two ideas here. We set forward all men wear green hats, and this person is wearing a green hat, therefore they're a man. That doesn't work, right? Because we never said that only men wear green hats. That's much bullshit. Yeah, we never said that only men wear green hats. We never said that if you're not a man, you can't wear a green hat. Now, to turn it around, so wearing a green hat doesn't make you a man in this case. But if you're a man, you have to be wearing a green hat. So if we were to look at somebody and say that person is a man, and we don't know what their head looks like yet, but for some reason we've seen their dick, we can say that they are definitely wearing a green hat. That's true, right? Or at least that's sound reasoning from those premises. This is kind of how logic works, just in a general sense, is that you actually have a pretty laid out structure, and if you lay it out symbolically, symbolic logic is cool, you end up with something that looks a lot like math. What's up, Jables?
No, go ahead.
So what I'm kind of getting at here is that people like to be really wishy-washy about things. Just because some things make sense doesn't mean it's logical. If you want to start talking in logical terms, you got to start basically talking in terms of premises, conclusions, and how you get from the former to the latter. You have to say, okay, what's true? What does that imply? What does that say about what could be? All kinds of stuff like that. But you have to lay these things out really cut and dry. Now, granted, you don't necessarily know everything that's true. That's why deductive and inductive reasoning are things, and there's like two different ones, and they have different ways that they work. Right? But if you do not have a passing familiarity with logic, I strongly recommend that you go and I either talk to Livy. There's plenty of YouTube channels out there that'll talk about it. There's plenty of places that you can look up just like introduction to formal logic, stuff like that. And there's a lot of different systems of logic, but one of them, yes. Livy, yes, logic, it looks like math, yes, but math deals with numbers, logic deals with language, fair, but better way, or the way I'd put it at least, is that both of these are systems that work on logical underpinnings, where you have symbols that represent operators. For example, in math, we have a little symbol that's the equal sign that says these two things are equivalent. In logic, you have, symbols that represent therefore, not, and, or, stuff like that. Think the Boolean operators, or other things that end up in symbolic logic. Point is, you can lay it out in a very mathematical structure. And the reason I bring this up is that if you are not, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not really a math person, I have some bad news for you. Because
you are.
Like as far as logic goes, it's very... Yeah, agreed, Livy. We absolutely do have word problems in math. Again, it's systems. Like different systems of expressing meanings and stuff. But point is, if you are not ready to consider things in that mathematical nature, or like at least in the sort of frame of mind that you would need to do that, whether you go to word problems or just straight up math problems with symbols, if you're not ready to think along those lines, bringing logic into a conversation is very difficult to do. Right? And you can, so there's a lot of bits there, and I have this problem with a lot of people. Like, for example, I like to do something. This is diverging a little bit from just kind of the core of logic, but proofs are sort of a different thing. Like, proving something isn't just putting forward a bunch of evidence, right? Like, if for example, if I wanted to prove to you that person is wearing a green hat because he's a man, I would have to show you all the evidence that all men wear green hats. If I could show you...
What if I'm colorblind?
Well, tough shit. Let's just call it hats. Let's say all men wear hats, right? Point is, I would have to show you that is true before you consider it. So proving it would basically be sort of showing, like, could potentially be showing that logically everything's sound, and then just proving that the original premises are true. Now, the other thing that you could do is you could prove it false by basically turning around and being like, well, look, let's just assume it's true. And no, I know that logic is not math, but they when I say mathematical, I'm talking about that, again, talking about that sort of, I'm running into the problem with like using the word logical and using the word math. I guess if you're not ready to think about things with an ordered structure, you're going to have a problem. Yeah, so I keep responding.
Logic is not math, but math is logical.
Mathematics is fundamentally a logical system. It's just, it runs into some problems because, cough, cough, Gerdell, but...
yeah.
Or Girdle, or however I'm supposed to pronounce his name. I will selectively pronounce it correctly or incorrectly as I please. But
I know how to say Mein Kampf.
Sure, whatever, great. The reason I bring this up is that there are a lot of bits of logic that people seem to be sort of, I guess not necessarily ignorant of, but it seems to me that a lot of people who talk about logic, much like a lot of people who talk about skepticism, seem to be almost wholly ignorant of how logic works and how a lot of parts of things work, or parts of logic work. So the reason why something like Livy, we are going to have to argue about the sciences thing, because I would argue that mathematics in a lot of ways cannot be science, because scientific method.
Could we pull Livy in?
I don't want to, because we will run out of time going on one tangent, because Livy's really interesting and really knowledgeable. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Follow the show, absolutely, but it's one of those things where it's like, Livy, we need to give you a whole show to yourself.
Yes. I spent like 6 hours talking to Livy one night.
If there's one takeaway here before I get into one of the examples I'm going to bring up, okay? Yeah, I might do that, Rinchi, but if there's one example or one takeaway here, it's that logic is not this ephemeral thing where if it's like, oh, this makes sense, that doesn't mean it's logical. And there are different kinds of sense. Something can make logical sense. Something can make intuitive sense. There's a lot of different ways you can look at that, right? So,
Don't.
I'm gonna
make this
minimize
responding to Livy on it. I know you had a lot of stuff for prayer.
Jables, shut up.
I know.
Jables.
know you had a lot of
Jables.
Waffle.
No, Jables, listen
Waffle.
to me. I'm gonna mute you. Alright. No, because you're going to interrupt me. You were interrupting me when I was trying to say, again, Livy, we're going to have to talk about this later. I'm going to minimize the chat so it's not going to distract me. It's almost like maybe I was handling it myself, Jables. Anyway.
Okay.
Sorry. That is when I do get annoyed when people interrupt me, is when you feel the need to manage me, and I don't need to be managed in that instance. So, part of the the takeaway that I'm kind of trying to get at here, if this is the one where it's like, if this is the only thing you get from the show, I'll be happy. I do want to get into a little bit more than that. Is that, again, logic is not a wishy-washy thing. Like, calling someone smart could mean any number of things. Saying that something is logical is a lot more narrow. So be careful with how you use that word, and if you don't know stuff about logic, by all means, learn. It's Logic is an interesting thing to pursue. It's a really interesting way to start looking at arguments and looking at, just ideas and how things are structured and put together, right? It's a useful tool to have in your toolbox of stuff in your head that you can use to think about things. So if you don't know stuff about logic, by all means, start finding people who are going to talk to you about it. Livy's a good example here, but again, I can probably put links in the description. That's the first takeaway.
Well, define logic.
It gets frustrating.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that you and I run into and we argue about a lot. Is a lot of semantics.
Yeah, the difference is you're wrong. So sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Shots fired. Pew pew pew.
Yeah, generally speaking, when I'm talking about logic, and Livy can feel free to correct me on this at some point, I'm usually talking about what is essentially not necessarily a system of axioms, but rather the rules behind how those work. So again, mathematics isn't all the numbers that exist. Mathematics is how everything interacts, or how all those numbers interact, among other things. Logic is a similar deal. It's how propositions interact. It's how conclusions arise from them. It's how premises work. It's all that jazz, which is interesting. So if someone wanted to show me that something was a logical system, it doesn't have to necessarily it doesn't necessarily have to be true, because it could be it could be false but still logical. What it has to do is be consistent. Its rules have to work and have to apply everywhere. So for example, I guess the fallacy is a bad example here, but in that, again, I always bring this back to math because I feel like math is something that generally speaking people are more familiar with. 1 + 1 always equals 2 within a certain system of arithmetic, which is the system of arithmetic that we're pretty much all familiar with. 1 + 1 always equals 2.
Yeah, but
right.
Yeah, but 2 + 2 always equals fish.
Jables, I don't want to go there right now.
All right.
Like, you're gonna piss me off. But no, we've done this before. Yeah. I don't want to go there. Point is that if you when I'm talking about logic, I'm not talking about every system of logic. I'm usually starting with first order logic. First order logic is one of the really first basic kind of. I mean, it is to a degree symbolic logic, but you can state it in language very effectively. And it's the really, really basic stuff. Like, for example, X is true, Y, or if A exists, therefore B exists. I observe A, therefore B must be there, even if I don't see it, right? Like that's basic first order logic stuff. That's often what I'm talking about, because a lot of times when someone runs into logical problems, you don't need much more beyond first order logic to just break it down and be like, all right, show me where this is true, right? Show to me that this piece of evidence that you see and this truth that you're getting at are actually connected. Because if you can't show that connection, then it doesn't fit together, right?
Yeah, sure.
So a lot of these use the same rules as like Boolean operators, and Boolean operators are, if you actually, you can play with this in Google. Google will actually let you use Boolean operators for searches, but like and, or, not, XOR, all that stuff. For like search this term but not this term. Like, you can exclude certain terms from search. So you could say like search Syria, not Trump. And you would get pages that have the word Syria on it that don't have the word Trump on it. So there's a lot of similar operators going on there. And again, that comes back to that point of these are systems that exist that are well documented. You can go and check them out and learn about them. But first order logic is a good tool to have in your back pocket at any given time, because it's pretty easy to implement. You don't necessarily need to know, all the way into symbolic logic. I am not as well versed in symbolic logic as I'd like to be. stumble with it. I have to think about it a lot more. I can't just read it directly because it is a language in a lot of ways. But with first order logic, you can structure everything in language, which is really, really nice. Like, if this, then that. You know, if this, therefore that. This, therefore that. Stuff like that. It works in language pretty effectively. It's nice. But that's generally what I'm looking for. So if you can't show me the connection between each thing or demonstrate that connection, then your premise, or not your premise, but your argument is not necessarily connecting logically. This is where all those logical fallacies come in. Logical fallacies are basically ways that supporting an argument doesn't work in a lot of ways. So, for example, this thing is true because this guy with a PhD says it's true. That's an argument to authority. Just because there's authority doesn't make it true. You have to read some other evidence to make that true, right? So the point is, like, I don't want to get into all the fallacies and everything, but the whole that whole thing, it gets into basically how supporting an argument fails and everything like that. But if you don't understand how an argument fits together in the first place, it's really, really hard to talk about these, you know? One of the things I've run into with a lot of people in the Discord and elsewhere, someone will put forward something and I'll say, okay, demonstrate. You know, show me how that's true. You can't necessarily just put forward a statement and say, this is true, and have me believe it. You're going to have to show me how that's true.
Well, I ran into that last night. There was somebody telling me that I was wrong talking about certain drugs. And how they affect the body and how you absorb them and everything like that. And I asked this guy told me that I was wrong. I asked him for proof, and the only proof I got was pretty much a whole study on the best way to do cocaine. That's it. He wanted to prove to me that it was wrong that I was using it so much, because I do cocaine all the time, apparently.
And so what he sent to you was something that didn't necessarily back up his point. But the way I see that is, it's like, okay, what is his argument? It is wrong that you are using cocaine, I guess, so much, right?
Yeah.
There are any number of places that we can poke holes in that, because that relies on a bunch of assumptions. 1, it is wrong to use cocaine however much so much is. 2, you actually use cocaine that much. All right?
Yeah.
So you could put up, he goes like, oh, it's wrong to use cocaine that much. And you could like, well, I don't use it that much. That's an assumption. That argument falls apart because one of these things is not true. You know, if you can show that the premises of an argument are false, the conclusion does not follow. Now, granted, the conclusion can still be real. I could say the sun goes up every day because Apollo exists and drags it across the sky in his chariot. Now, one of my premises is wrong, but the sun comes up every day, doesn't it? So you can be wrong, like you can be right for the wrong reasons.
It didn't help. It didn't help that a bunch of you fuckers in the Discord started saying that I was on a 2-day fucking bender. It was one fucking night, you assholes.
Either way, it's still that is one thing I do want to caution people against. Just because someone's evidence doesn't support their conclusion doesn't mean that the conclusion is by definition false. It means that they can't support it. It means that you probably shouldn't believe it, but that doesn't mean that you should turn around and say, this is not true. You should say, I don't have the reason to believe it's true, but it's not necessarily bullshit just because someone can't give you the right evidence for it. I see a lot of people doing that where, like, look, if I put you on the spot and you can't give me evidence, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true. What I'm saying is you've given me absolutely no reason to believe it, and if I have to believe that for the conversation to continue, we're going to have a problem. If you ask me to believe a particular argument, I can do that for a while and to see where you're going. If you ask me to just kind of let's pretend this is true to talk about it, sure, I can do that. That's great. But if you're going to tell me this is true, and that's the foundation of your argument, and I don't think it is, you're going to have to prove that to me first.
Yeah.
And it's
that's an issue that I ran into last night.
Right, but
I was talking to this guy in the Discord, and he said, this is absolutely true. And I said, provide me with sources.
And again, walking it back, this is very important because part of the reason I bring this up is because I've run into I'm usually pretty careful with what I say. In most of these cases, I'm not saying that you're lying to me. I'm not saying that whatever you're saying is not true. I'm saying that even if it is true, it's not true for the reasons you're saying it is. Right? So going forward, using that argument on someone you actually want to convince isn't going to work very well because it's a bad argument. Alternatively, I might also be saying that what you're saying is just batshit fucking crazy and wrong. I might be doing that, and I'll usually be pretty clear when I am. But that's usually because, regardless of the argument you're using to get there, that conclusion has already been proven false by like lots of evidence or something like that. Like if you come up here and say, oh, climate change isn't happening at all, that's not a thing that exists, the climate is static. Like, no matter how you're reasoning to get there, I can tell you flat out that you're fucking wrong. You know? Because evidence doesn't agree with you. But that being said, with that, one of my sort of feelings was dipping a little more into sort of rationality and some other bits, but Jables, I've run into this with you, and usually you're drunk when it happens, which pisses me off because we don't get anywhere when it happens. But I've run into this with a few people.
I was about to bring that up too.
If you put forward something and say that it's true, let's say, and I press you on it, I say, you know, not necessarily convince me, but just like give me a reason to believe it. Right? That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for evidence or proof. I'm saying give me a reason to believe this. If you can't produce any reason to believe it beyond your own word, what that tells me is that you don't have a good reason to believe it either. Now, it doesn't mean it's wrong. But
yeah, but waffle in my defense. How many times? Okay, I'm probably wrong on that.
What? No, a lot of you do that. You do that a fair amount. Well, actually, no, you don't do that very often. You just like to table discussion and never get anywhere with them.
No. There have been a lot of times where I said I'm probably wrong on that.
Sure, but that's not what I'm getting at with you. I'm not going after you on that right now. But what I'm saying is, in general, if you are asked to defend a point and you cannot come up with any defenses of the point, not even bad ones, not anything, if you have nothing in your head that works, especially if you do have stuff and you put it out there and it gets dashed to bits, like, oh, I have this study to support the wage gap, or, oh, wait, that study's been thoroughly debunked. If that happens, that's your cue to turn around and very thoroughly analyze and figure out what the fuck's going on in your head. I'm not saying you're crazy, but if you can't give anyone else a reason to believe something that you believe, then what reason do you have to believe it? I'm not saying you don't have one. I'm saying that since you couldn't present one to somebody, you better figure out what it is. You know?
Yeah,
because otherwise you can never convince anybody. You can never talk about this without sounding like a crackpot. So, if you come up to somebody and say, like, I believe this thing, you should believe it too, and they don't, and you can't convince them, really start thinking about why that is, because it might be that you have some sort of knee-jerk reaction or some sort of dogmatic thing where you're believing in the thing just to believe it and you don't really have a good reason why. That's a good point to reevaluate. Admittedly, that's hard. That's a lot of work. I'm not necessarily going to expect that of everybody ever, but I would like to see it because it's the standard I hold myself to. So I'm just gonna get into sort of a describing something, what I mean in a very concrete term with mathematics stuff. Just because, again, math is a really easy way to lean on, for me to lean on things to show sort of structure of a logical system and what a proof looks like. This might just be leaning into mathematical proofs because I like mathematical proofs, but this is one of the I find it useful. I'm just going to go into it and we can always talk about it later. Where are you hiding? We're going to pop that up. So I'm actually don't be scared. This is not actually all that horrible. I'm going to go through it one piece at a time. Jables, I'll copy paste. I'll send you. I'll copy paste something to you so you can see it. I think, I think I'll be able to do that.
All right, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Now, I'm hoping that this will copy-paste correctly to you. Wait, no, that's Goldie. That's not you. Bam. Yeah, that actually did copy-paste correctly. So just leave that up there and... Oh, wait, I was not supposed to minimize that. Whoopsie. All right. So...
Square 2.
Yeah, just leave that be. I will explain each of these. I'm just laying out a few steps for a thing. Because it's helpful.
I don't want to do math tonight.
You're not going to have to actually do math. This is not math. This is math proof. So, the one of the things I was asked to do in class a few years ago was just prove that the square root of 2 is irrational. It's actually a really short proof. It's only about 7 lines, last I checked, if you put in all the language with it too. It's pretty short. Brief thing to talk about that there. When you're talking about an irrational number, you're not talking about like, oh, it's a crazy number. It doesn't make any sense. I hate that they don't tell you this in school and shit because it actually is a really simple thing. All an irrational number is a number that cannot be expressed as a fraction of 2 other numbers. That's it. That's all an irrational number is. They always tell you the whole, oh, the decimals continue forever without repeating. Nope. All it is that you cannot find 2 numbers that one divided by the other equals this number. Okay? That's a pretty simple step, right? That's just definition of a term. Irrational means cannot express it as a ratio. Great! Alright, so square root of 2 is irrational. How do we prove this? One of my favorite ways to do proofs is and this extends to some of how I argue, is to do something called proof by contradiction. This is what more often, like outside of math, called, I think it's reductio ad absurdum, basically reduction of the argument to the absurd. And what you do to do this is you basically take an argument, you take a conclusion where it's like square root of 2 is irrational, or square root of 2 is not irrational in this case, and you just say, you take that argument, you say, it's true. Let's just pretend it's true. And then, given that that's true, doesn't matter if it is or not, we just pretend that it is. We start going through steps of, okay, what are all the implications of that until we hit a contradiction, where 2 things that can't be true at the same time have to be. And all of a sudden we can show that that thing can't be true. Right? And part of the reason I want to do this is because, Jables, this will give you some insight into how I talk about things when I say, like, okay, let's just pretend that this is true for the moment. I'm not necessarily accepting you or asking you to accept that it's true. I'm asking you to entertain it for a moment so we can get to the reason why it's false. All right.
Yeah.
So for this we say, okay, square root of 2, let's pretend it's rational. We want to say that it can't be expressed as a fraction. Let's pretend we can express it as a fraction. So we get to this next bit that we're going to set up. So, if it's a fraction, there are 2 numbers, a divided by b, that are going to give us a number. Now, funny thing about that property, any given fraction, if you simplify everything down, one of the numbers is going to be odd, and one of them is going to be even. And this kind of makes sense, actually. You know, take it like you could have 16 30 seconds. Turns into, divide both top and bottom by 2, and you get 8 16ths. And then you do 4 8ths, and then 2 4ths, and then 1 half. 1 and 2. One's odd, one's even. So if you simplify a fraction down, you will always get that. One of them's odd, one of them's even. That there are rigorous proofs for that. I don't want to go into it. Let's, for the moment, just go with that's true. It's going to be a useful assumption. We are leaning on that property that is demonstrated elsewhere. Okay? So, one of these numbers has to be odd. The other one has to be even. Doesn't matter which is which. So then we get to our next thing. Well, we can do we can get some interesting stuff out of the Pythagorean theorem, because we know that's a property of triangles. We can say that basically what we can get to is that 2 is one side of the triangle because it's 2 square root of 2 squared 2, and then we can say that the other 2 sides of the triangle are a squared and b squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In this case, c squared is 2. Great. Okay. So far, so good. This makes sense. Now remember, one of these has to be odd, the other has to be even. That's still true. So now we can do a little bit of algebra stuff. We just multiply both sides by b, or b squared. We end up with 2 times b squared equals a squared. And this is where we get into a problem. Because remember, these guys got to be even. Or one of these has to be even, one of these has to be odd. So if b squared is odd, because if you square an odd number, it becomes odd. If you square an even number, it becomes even. Again, one of those properties that's demonstrated elsewhere that we're leaning on. So, 2 times a thing is even. So, if b squared is odd, then 2b squared is even, and a squared is even. Okay, this actually works right now. This still makes sense. This can equal each other. This is fine. We have, odd number turns into an even number equals an even number. We're good. This is fine. But let's pretend that a there is actually a different number. It's a square of another number. Let's just say that's a thing. That's fine. We can do that. We're allowed to. So that's this number c. And it's 2c because it's that. So now we have this other version. We have 2 times a thing equals 4 times a thing. And this is where we run into our problems. Because what this requires is effectively that either... Pretty much whichever way you do this, you're going to require one of these numbers to be both odd and even. One of them has to be odd, the other has to be even. So, in this case, if b is odd, 2b is even. We divide, and then c has to also be even, right? We divide both sides. Yeah. We just divide both sides. We're allowed to do that, okay? We end up with b squared, which is odd, equals 2c squared, which has to be even because there's a 2 there. This is a contradiction. These numbers can't equal each other because no matter how you reduce this, no matter how you make one of them odd or even, it's requiring the other one to be the same thing. These do not equal each other, right? So what we're doing is we're starting with this idea of, okay, let's say that the square root of 2 can be expressed as a fraction. What is then true because of that? We follow that all the way down, and we hit this point where we're asking one of these numbers to be odd and even at the same time, which can't be true. Okay? And we're just following the rules of our system. We're just following the rules of arithmetic. We're just following, this set of stuff that everybody learned in first grade, right? When you multiply 2 numbers, it does this. Now, you didn't necessarily learn all these properties, but these all come out of things that you did in first grade. These are very bottom level pieces of our system of math. Right?
Overall, you're losing me, and you're also losing the audience.
I'm sure I'm losing the audience. The point I'm trying to bring out here is that this is one of probably my favorite example of proof by contradiction, just because I had to work it out myself at one point. But the thing is, we can lay out a case for that. Like, we can say, if, for example, if someone walks in, if this guy walks in and says that you're using drugs too much and that's bad, you can say, all right, just for the sake of argument, let's say that that's true. Okay, let's say I use drugs, quote unquote, too much. Sure. All right, so define bad.
Yeah.
And then he defines bad. And then you say, okay, so bad means I have, let's say, a lower quality of... I'm going to put words in his mouth, but let's say bad means I have a lower quality of life. Bad means I'm less happy. Bad means my mind doesn't function as well. Bad means any number of these things, right? Let's say he defines bad in some way.
Well, no, that would be applied to me, with him saying that I'm using drugs too much.
No, I know, but here's the thing.
Okay,
You've mentioned taking LSD every once in a while to clear the cobwebs. That's something that's positive in your life. That's something that makes you more functional. That makes you happy, improves your mental health. So if he's saying it's bad for you, and you turn around and say, okay, let's assume that I do use drugs as much as you say I do. Now we can attack this bad thing. Then you just follow it like, yes, sure, I use drugs this much, and that's apparently bad. And you follow that out until you hit a contradiction where you can say, wait a second, these two things can't be true at the same time. Right? And that is one way to argue. It's not the only way to argue. It's one angle. It's actually a fairly limited one. It's one I use a lot because a lot of people give me an opportunity to do that. Right? It's very easy to do it with broad statements because when someone says, all blank are blank, you know, like, oh, white people are racist. All I have to do is find one white person who's not racist, you know, and the entire argument falls apart. You know, all I have to do is show that contradiction, right? And that can either by making your rules conflict with each other. That can be by presenting an evidence that proves one of the things that you set forward is just not true. That can be by showing that the reason that you're putting forward does not, or like the premise that you're setting forward doesn't follow the conclusion. So, for example, if you were to look at somebody and say, oh, you got sick because you didn't, you know, have your chakras in balance. It's like, okay, but what about all the other people who don't have their chakras in balance that don't get sick? Right? Like that all of a sudden you can show that there's sort of a contradiction there of like, okay, does this person have their chakras in balance? Well, no. Okay, but are they sick? Well, no. Okay, so that can't be the reason that people get sick. You know?
Well, we could even go deeper and more American and be like, you got sick because you don't believe in Jesus.
You could do that, in which case you could find any healthy person who doesn't believe in Jesus. Or you could find a sick person who believes in Jesus. Either way, you can basically show these two things don't connect the way you're saying they do. And this is the essence of at least first order logic, is talking about these really simple propositions. If this thing is true, then that thing is true. I observe this thing is true. Therefore, that thing is true. If you can show that any of those connections don't work, entire argument falls apart. And it's astonishing just how many arguments boil down to first order logic. Right? And this is part of
well, didn't we cover a lot of this in our how to have productive conversations?
Partially, but we were talking about just kind of stuff with that, like, because that's actually one of the things I'd argue is that part of the how to have a productive conversation is sometimes you actually very much don't want to invoke logic. You know, if you're talking about people's feelings, fuck no, you don't want to invoke logic.
No, absolutely not. My mom would probably disown me if I didn't consider her feelings.
Yeah, well, there are places where logic, at least improperly used, doesn't belong, right? And there's also something not being entirely logical doesn't mean it's invalid. If someone is rip shit pissed, that doesn't necessarily, like, they're probably uncomfortable with it, because being angry is usually not terribly fun, or at least it isn't afterwards, right? So if someone is rip shit pissed at something you're doing, critiquing their logic for being pissed is not necessarily the right way to go about it, right? It's like, oh, you're illogical. That doesn't magically make the anger go away.
Yeah, I guess. Could we bring somebody on that was here last night when I was kind of frustrated with a certain individual?
Granted, there are times when logic serves very well to bring things away from the emotional and really, like, divorce that side of things. Be like, all right, let's stop talking about how we feel and start talking about what is, or something like that, or just talk about the arguments. There are right and wrong ways to use it, but be aware of your tools and whether or not this is the situation you want to use them in. You don't want to pick up a hammer when what you need is a wrench.
Yeah. Hey, Waffle, could you bring Pavaros on?
We could. We only have about 18 minutes before Saint starts, but do you want to go for it?
Yeah. That's fine. That's fair enough. I think Pavaros is very vocal in the chat, and I know he was there last night when I lectured. And like somebody.
I know I'm butchering a lot of it. Before I bring Pav on, Livy, I know I'm butchering a lot of this. I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'm just pretty sure you're probably seething at me right now. A lot of what I'm trying to do is kind of break this down into a thing, and admittedly bringing math into it's not the best way, but I like math. I don't like doing math classes, but I like math itself. But bringing math into it might not be the best way, but what I'm trying to do here is basically get it to that point where it's like logic is both not this wishy-washy thing that you can just kind of throw into random shit and then expect it to work if you have no idea what you're doing. Likewise, logic is also not this mysterious arcane thing. It's a thing you can learn and just do. Like, it's absolutely a discipline that you can pick up. It's writing is like, you may never be Vonnegut, right? But you can write well enough to put a cover letter together for yourself, or you can write well enough to send text to people. That's still writing. It's still building that skill. And one of the tricks to building any skill is to start with small and build it up by using it. So if you guys want to get started on logic, by all means, I will try to find some links to put in here to really kind of start off on the simple stuff. And the reason I say simple stuff is not talking down to anybody. It's because you want to get really solid on that. And it's a great way to exercise those neural pathways, those muscles in your head to get there and make it easier to keep doing it. So what I'm trying to do is demystify it a little bit, make it maybe a little bit less scary, provide a little bit of insight into the way I argue and talk for anybody who's interested into that, but also hopefully instill a little bit of respect into it. Now, that being said, Livy, I absolutely want to bring you on for a follow-up on this because you do know more about this than I do, and I think you're going to do a better job of really laying this shit out. I'm just kind of bringing this up as an introduction of, guys, maybe that word doesn't mean what you think it means, and this is actually a topic that might be a lot broader than you think it is. For going deeper into it, I think we're going to need to bring you on. So I'm going to go ahead and toss Pav into it. Bam. Not even asking first. I'm being terrible.
Top of that.
He's still ringing.
Oh, what's up?
We are talking about having a midweek show. Hey, Pav.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
I don't know why we're bringing you in. I like you. I like talking to you.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, you're saying some shit in the chat, so
I was moderating. I was kind of moderating the chat, like watching it.
Shit.
Yeah, no, I was talking shit about Jables. Jables, we need to sit down and talk about your audio setup.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
That's what's.
Please do it. Did intervention.
No,
I don't hate your audio setup, Jables, but yeah.
There's a simple understanding when it comes to audio is you turn down the mic to get less background audio, and because you're in Discord, you can actually turn up the mic in Discord while turning down the gain in the bait.
Well, I changed my voice activation settings earlier today, so that was the problem.
Right, because I was noticing a lot of. Right, and one of the things that I was noticing was people kept making complaints that that your audio was like getting to the point where we were hearing the cars and we could not hear anything Waffle was saying.
Oh,
and
okay.
So that's why I yelled at you in the chat. I'm like, listen, I need to somehow figure out a way to get Jable's attention. And
after you yelled at me, I changed my audio pickup settings, my voice activation settings.
I didn't mean to come off so strong. I was just like, all right, listen, I don't think he's singing what everybody's talking about. I need to figure out how to address this.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
It does remind me of something vaguely of when we were talking. Fuck it, I'm gonna name drop you. Hi, Streagle. I don't know if you watch, but there was at least one time we were speaking.
Mute yourself when you're about to punch your mom.
No, and granted, like I know a lot of people have issues with Streagle. I have comparatively fewer than most. It's
I enjoy arguing with him.
My one-on-one conversations with him have actually been pretty great. One conversation, I'm not going to say exactly when or where, because fuck it, don't go looking for it. I'm going to take this out of context, but there was something about talking about language following a logical basis, and so using that language means that you're referring to the logical underpinnings of it. You have to have an understanding of that, and that's kind of true, but kind of not. But this is one of those examples where I'd say misusing logic, because just because someone says a word doesn't mean that they have the same understanding of what that word means and all it implies and what logical structures it's built into and all that that you
right.
So
right, and I was actually even explaining this to somebody earlier today. Like people have perceptions of what they mean by the words they say, and there's a lot of things behind some of the things they say, and they impose those perceptions that they think that everyone else has, when in a lot of times that's what creates like less productive arguments, is when someone keeps saying something that doesn't really mean the same thing in a sense to the other person it does to the first, and they just start talking past each other. And this happens consistently, and I was actually just sitting down with one of my coworkers at the end of work, because I just got home. I've been at work all day, and I was walking him through some stuff, and I was kind of bitching about it for a minute, but it's consistent where you'll see very much a lot of people like make an argument for something, and they'll use a word that is very simple,
Here's a great example. All those liberals are crazy with their SJW nonsense. Well, it depends. It depends on how you define liberal. You know.
Yeah. Well, it also depends on. But it also depends on how you define SJW. I had this conversation a few days ago where, like, I don't see calling someone a social justice warrior as a pejorative. I see it as an explanation of their actions. They are, in fact, in warrior mode towards the social justice, pushing that social justice agenda. Now, that's not inherently a pejorative. It can be, and like, a lot of things can be used in a pejorative, and a lot of people love to, like, muddle things up. I have become hugely disenfranchised with the term snowflake, because like a lot of, like, Fox News, I started hearing Fox News use the term and they weren't using it correctly, and it just ruined the word for me. But no, when it comes to, like, a lot of these arguments that we keep getting into, there's a ton of times where you'll be sitting there and you'll be talking at someone, and I've had to do this with multiple people. I'm like, what do you define this as? And you actually brought up a good point of that. Like what would you define? Like, give me a whole structure of what you define bad for someone's life is, when you were talking about that argument that happened last night was fun. Night was fun.
Yeah, I know you were there for that, Pavros, where I just fucking laid into him, and he assumed a lot more than he actually had evidence.
He kept butting himself into it, and consistently, like, bringing. We were making jokes about who was it? Speedy, Pizza Trap, and there was a joking statement being made about Pizza Trap, and he had gotten a little upset, and he's like. He's or at least that was his tone. He's like, why are we talking about the sexual orientation of someone while they're not here? And I'm like, and we all brushed it off and moved on, and then started making like, we went into the old argument. Sneaky, thank you, Bar. We went into the old arguments of our trap's gay, and then he interrupts. And he's like, you know, you guys were just getting after me for talking about pedantic arguments, and I had to stop, and I'm like, hold on, like let's roll this back, and I've had to do this with a few people in my life. Is what I responded. It was like, no, this is a joking. Like, it might sound pedantic, but we're all having fun, and we're not actually making any real arguments here. He's like, well, that's what I've been doing. And then I'm like, okay, so then maybe it's your tone, because if everybody hears
what
you're saying,
that you're being serious and is engaging with you seriously, it doesn't really help much when you come back at the end and say, "Oh, I was just joking around," because no one else thought that was what was going on.
Right, and that was
wink, nudge, salty Gus, Matthew Striegel.
Oh, come on, don't be a dick like that. I brought up the Matthew Striegel thing only because the example of talking about logical underpinnings of language came up in mind in reference to one thing. I'm not talking shit about people.
Just on the thing of use of words, like I think I've even had a few arguments with Matthew Striegel, because I enjoy my arguments with him. There was times I've had to walk away because I realized that the place where I'm coming from is not the same place where he's coming from, and I'm never going to be able to bring him to that place. You were making that statement a little bit earlier about how, you know, if you're getting into an argument with someone and you can't agree on, like, the core of what it is, you're not going to get anywhere. And, like, to bring this up, Jables, your mic's...
Yeah, your mic's
echoing.
Sorry. What?
Real quick, I just want to note we are running pretty low on time, and I'm happy to go
I apologize.
right up. No, don't apologize. I'm totally happy to go right up to the bitter end. Before we do that, I just want to bring up, because I put something up on the stream here, and I want to sort of explain why it's there. This is not this is some sort of example of symbolic logic of first order logic with a couple of things. It's not the only way to do it. I've seen other symbology for it. But this is without necessarily knowing what these symbols mean. The point the point to bringing this up is just showing that these sentences and basically collected arguments can be expressed in this symbol form. Relating to what we're talking about with what do words mean and what is someone saying, what do they actually mean, one of the most important things you can do with using logic is making sure that the right things are going in the right places for the quote-unquote equation. I'm using that in a colloquial sense. So make sure that you know before you just start saying, oh, this, okay, this is true, this is not true, your argument fails. Make sure you actually know what they're saying and what they're arguing, because you might be poking into a contradiction that doesn't actually exist. Because just because this structure exists, yes, you can put forward the structure, you can have X, Y, and Z, and you can have all your symbols ready to go, but if you don't know what fits into what slot, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's I'm mostly bringing that up to show that while you can reduce arguments down to symbols like this, you have to know that you're actually reducing the argument at hand to symbols and not the one that you think is being had. So be very careful with how you use these. But if you're going to be pragmatic about it, you get someone, you state someone's argument to them in the form of this kind of logic. If blank is true, then if this is true, then this is true. Or if A is true, then B is true. And you think A is true, so you also think B is true. You state it back to them in a form like that they'll agree with. And when they agree with that, then you can turn around and say, okay, here's where that breaks down. But if they don't agree that that's what their argument is, then you're not poking holes in their argument.
Right.
Go ahead,
Hold up, Waffle. I do that a lot with, for anybody that doesn't know, I do a lot of magic down at the bar, my local bar.
Yep.
For free drinks. And that sounds a lot like, making somebody feel like they're right without actually saying that they're right.
What I just said?
Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is, like, you have to basically break, like, if you want to poke holes in their argument using a system of logic that you know, you have to turn take their argument and put it into that system of logic in a way that it fits. But if you're going to do that and make sure that it makes sense, you have to put it in, like, when you put it into the system of logic, you got to repeat it back to them and see if they agree that that is what their argument is. Restate their argument in a way that makes sense to you and makes sense to them, and then shit all over it.
All right.
But the thing is, you have to actually agree you're talking about the same thing.
Our time is up.
We have 4 more minutes. Shut up.
Where we talk about manipulation and
I will have a field day with manipulation.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you know
what? Both.
Legit, is that actually what our plan is? Because if we want to do an episode about conversational traps, fuck yeah, I'm down.
Unfortunately, I can't.
but thank you, Pavros, for joining in, and we'll talk off air, Waffle.
Yeah, it's about stuff.
But tune in next week to your one and only pre-show for the YouTube Saints. Fat Pat and Sophane, I love you because you both follow me on Twitter. We air every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good night, guys. It's been the Kilroy week. We didn't get to talk about that, but
we'll talk about it next week.
It would have been fun.
Time for it to digest and curdle and turn it into jelly juice.
Yeah, when I can actually watch all the footage.
Yeah. I still haven't got around to that either.
Because
all right. Well, my apologies for getting a little bitchy at places there, but yeah, I think what we're selling on here is that we got a topic for next week. We got to talk about some fun stuff. At least I think so.
And hey, audience, fuck you.
Yeah, we're bringing Livy on at some point, and I'm actually really looking forward to that.
Yep.
And this should be good as hell. Anyway, we actually started on time, and we're gonna hopefully end on time. Everybody, enjoy your YouTube Saints. Give them lots of monies because you can't give us monies yet. And be well. Pavros, you got any words to sort of end on there?
Oh no! Thank you for bringing me on. Yeah.
Hopefully
enjoy talking to you guys.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you're home from work a little bit earlier, we'll be able to bring you on a bit longer. Talk about Locked and Loaded. Maybe bring Smart Pick and Buck on. Watch Buck pass out. Continue the rest of the stream without him. Except in this case, I have the controls, so it'll still end on time. Sorry, Buck. I have to give you shit.
Buck calls himself an alcoholic, but he doesn't drink with me, so.
I'm sorry, is that logically correct? Sorry, fuck.
Yeah, that's probably right. He drinks so much, so he'll pass out and not have to think about it.
All right, well, I'm gonna switch us back to our logo. I'm gonna go ahead and end us out here. We don't have any music to play us out. So
no intro.
Right
Wait. By the way, anybody that makes music, let us know because we need some intro outro music.
Looking at you, Mito. I might use your vaporwave if you want me to. I liked it, by the way. I did listen to it. It's good. Anyway,
I keep going.
No, it's I clap my hands. You're go for it. That's a transition thing.
Okay. I actually know a ton of YouTubers who don't put copyrights on their music that they upload, allowing like film students and all that. It will just fume people in general to use their music.
She told me about this.
I didn't realize you guys needed any, but it's just like that's something that you always have to have when you're an editor. Music is extremely important.
We will talk later, and everybody have a good night. Enjoy the Saints. Chat might get rowdy. Don't worry, you have mods here. I'm actually starting to sober up already. My liver's fucking amazing, so I'll actually be here to moderate, and then I'll get drunk again. Night, everybody. Hopefully see you for the after show. Let's play us out, Johnny!